The vanishing of Lars Mittonk. Lars Mittonk was an ordinary young man from Germany, a 28-year-old who loved football and hanging out with his friends. In June 2014, he went on a vacation to Bulgaria with a group of friends. What was supposed to be a fun summer trip soon turned into one of the most baffling disappearances ever recorded. Lars and his friends stayed at a resort in Varna, a city along the Black Sea, enjoying the beaches, bars, and nightclubs. On the fourth night, an argument broke out at a bar over a football rivalry between Lars and some other tourists. It wasn't a major fight, just some pushing and shouting, but later that night, Lars told his friends he wasn't feeling well. The next morning, his condition had worsened. His ear was hurting, and he said he felt like something was wrong. His friends took him to a doctor who confirmed he had suffered a ruptured eardrum, possibly from a punch or the loud music in the club. The doctor prescribed cefuroxime, an antibiotic, and advised him not to fly until his ear healed. Lars' friends had already booked their flights home, but since he wasn't clear to fly, he decided to stay behind for a few more days. His friends left, promising to keep in touch. That's when things took a bizarre turn. Alone in Bulgaria, Lars checked into a cheap hotel near the airport. The hotel staff later reported that he was acting paranoid. He refused to eat, kept looking out the windows as if someone was following him, and paced around his room nervously. At one point, he called his mother, whispering frantically, "I don't feel safe. I need to get out of here. There's something wrong." His mother, worried, asked what was happening. Lars claimed that 4 men were following him, trying to kill him because of the fight in the bar. He said he had left the hotel and was hiding. His mother suggested he go to the airport immediately. The next morning, he arrived at Varna Airport looking disheveled and frightened. Surveillance footage from the airport showed Lars acting strangely. He walked in nervously, carrying his backpack, but kept stopping, looking over his shoulder, and muttering to himself. He approached a doctor at the airport's medical office, asking if it was safe for him to fly. The doctor examined him and saw no reason why he couldn't board a plane, but then something terrifying happened. In the footage, Lars suddenly jumps up from his chair, his face filled with pure terror. He looks toward the door, as if he sees someone or something outside. Without warning, he sprints out of the medical office, leaving his backpack and belongings behind. He runs out of the airport through the parking lot and climbs over a barbed wire fence that separates the airport from the woods. He disappears into the dense forest and has never been seen again. Rescue teams, police, and volunteers searched for him for weeks. No body, no evidence, no signs of Lars was ever found. The only clues left behind were his belongings in the airport. To this day, no one knows what caused Lars Mittonk to flee in terror. Was he suffering from a reaction to the antibiotics? Was he truly being followed? Or did he see something that no one else could? His mother still searches for him, convinced that he's out there somewhere. But the deeper you look into this case, the more chilling it becomes, because whatever Lars saw that day made him vanish without a trace. The mystery of the Westbrook Pass Incident. In January 1959, 9 experienced hikers set out on a challenging trek through the Ural Mountains. Led by 23-year-old Daniel Westbrook, the group consisted of young university students, all skilled in winter expeditions. They had planned to reach Mount Grey Ridge, but they never made it. What happened to them remains one of the most terrifying and unexplained mysteries in history. The group was made up of highly trained hikers, all from the Ural Polytechnic Institute. They were pursuing the highest certification in Soviet hiking, requiring them to complete an extremely difficult trek through the wilderness in temperatures that could drop to minus 30 degrees Celsius. The team consisted of 7 men and 2 women. Daniel Westbrook, 23, the leader; Emma Carter, 22, strong and determined; Mark Reynolds, 23, an athletic and disciplined young man; James Thornton, 24, a skilled navigator; Samantha Hayes, 20, the youngest but highly experienced; George Collins, 24, known for his sense of humor; Alexander Roberts, 25, a physics student; Simon Parker, 38, the oldest, and a mysterious addition to the group; and Michael Dawson, 21, a fearless hiker. They set off in high spirits, writing in their journals about the cold, the beauty of the landscape, and their excitement for the challenge. The plan was to reach Mount Grey Ridge, cross the Wintersong Pass, and return within a few weeks. On January 31st, the team reached the base of Wintersong Pass. They had planned to cross it the next day, but were delayed due to worsening weather conditions. Instead, they decided to set up camp on the slopes of the mountain, rather than moving back to a safer location in the valley. This decision would seal their fate. When the group failed to return on time, their families grew worried. After several days without radio contact, the Soviet military sent search teams to look for them. Helicopters and ground teams were dispatched to the harsh, snow-covered terrain. What they found shocked the world. The first sign of trouble was their abandoned tent, which was discovered on the slopes of Wintersong Pass. But something was very wrong. The tent was slashed open from the inside, as if the hikers had desperately cut their way out instead of using the normal entrance. Their shoes, jackets, and equipment were still inside, untouched, despite the freezing temperatures. The food had been left half-eaten, as if they had fled in the middle of their meals. It looked as though something had terrified them so much that they ran out into the snow barefoot. Following bare footprints in the deep snow, the search team found the first two bodies, 1.5 kilometers away from the tent near a tree. Michael and George were found in their underwear. Their hands were burned, and there was evidence that they had desperately tried to climb the tree, possibly to escape something or look for help. 3 more bodies were found several hundred meters away, including Daniel, Mark, and Emma. Their frozen bodies were positioned as if they were crawling back to the tent. Mark had a fractured skull, but no external wounds. They had no shoes, no coats, only thin layers of clothing, suggesting they had left the tent in absolute terror. But it wasn't until 2 months later that the final 4 bodies were discovered. On May 4th, 1959, a second search team discovered the remaining 4 hikers in a deep ravine, buried under several meters of snow. Unlike the others, they were fully dressed, as if they had taken clothes from their dead friends, but their injuries were horrifying and unexplainable. Samantha, James, Alexander, and Simon had suffered injuries so severe they resembled victims of a high-speed car chase. Samantha's tongue and eyes were missing. James's ribs were shattered. Simon's skull was crushed. Alexander's body showed signs of extreme pressure, as if something had squeezed the life out of him. Even stranger, their clothing was radioactive. Soviet authorities quickly shut down the investigation, claiming the deaths were caused by an unknown compelling force. But over the years, many terrifying theories have emerged. Some believe the hikers accidentally stumbled upon a secret Soviet weapon test. This would explain the radiation on their clothes, the severe internal injuries, as if from shockwave or explosion, why the Soviet Union quickly classified the case. But if that were true, why were some bodies found half-dressed and missing eyes and tongues? The native people spoke of an ancient presence in the mountains, a spirit of the wind that drove people insane if they trespassed in forbidden areas. Could the hikers have encountered something unnatural? Something that made them slash open their tent and run into the freezing night in terror? Some scientists suggest the wind patterns around the mountain created low-frequency sound waves that triggered extreme fear and hallucinations. If they panicked due to hallucinations, they might have fled the tent thinking they were in danger. Some could have died from hypothermia, while others fell into the ravine trying to escape. But this still doesn't explain the radioactive clothing or the missing body parts. Despite decades of research, the Westbrook Pass Incident remains one of the most frightening unsolved mysteries in history. Why did they flee their tent in terror? What caused their horrific injuries? And why did the Soviet Union cover up the case? To this day, no one knows what truly happened that night. But whatever the 9 hikers saw on the slopes of Wintersong Pass, they never lived to tell the story.